everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Andrew, and so excited today to have not only one of my good friends, colleagues, and warrant officers part of the cohort in the channel today for an amazing Breaking into Cyber episode, Jordan Lamoreaux, who is currently in the Cybersecurity, if I think I'm saying this correctly. I probably said it wrong. That's supposed
Director of SecOps.
Director of more titly official. But
yeah.
Jordan, so glad to have you on the channel, and I'll quickly pass it to you for a short introduction.
Yes, thank you so much, Andrew. Yeah, so my name's Jordan Lamoreaux. I'm the director of SecOps for Banner Hell. So that includes everything that is operations and in cyber defense. So I've got the Red Intel team, the Red team, vulnerability management, the SOC, incident response, cyber awareness and readiness, the whole gambit of ops, and I'm sure more to come as most organizations in cyber are constantly evolving and growing. And prior to that, I was managing director at Charles Schwab, where I ran their blue side of the house, so the SecOps as well, kind of a lot of the same things. And then eventually, branched out and started building up their red team. And then just before I left for the Banner gig, I started up a data protection operations team. So kind of like the next evolution of data protection and ops. If you think about the SOC is focused on threat monitoring, well, who's focused on compliance monitoring?
Yeah.
That's kind of the next evolution. And a lot of that was coming down from regulatory requirements. So that was really interesting. But then I took the opportunity at Banner Health. And then that on the military side of the house, I'm a 255 Alpha, Chief Warrant Officer 3, grandfathered into the cyber branch, but I'm part of the OG crew of the Signal Corps. And we can definitely talk a lot about that and how cyber in the Army started up. But yeah, so that's me in the industry.
Well, Jordan, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for your services always. And I'm going to go ahead and get hit with the first question for everyone I hit on the channel. So cybersecurity, as we are growing up in the world and we're in school and we get asked what we want to be when we grow up, we give the answer of doctors, lawyers, police officers, firefighter, veterinarians. But obviously we got into cybersecurity and we're pretty darn good at it. So kind of what's your origin story, or kind of how and why did you break into cyber?
So I was a network administrator originally. So I started off active duty in the Marine Corps, and I was always pretty IT savvy. That didn't translate into the Marine Corps. So I was a battery operated grunt or a radio man. But while I was in, obviously my focus was on wireless communications, and I got certified. I went to night school. Got certified in fiber optics, got certified in, wireless, access points and mesh and building up. This is before there was all the mainstream certs. So I got a job with a transportation engineering company right out of the gate, building a lot of the traffic signals, but the intelligent transportation systems behind it. So every traffic signal has cameras. They're connected either fiber optic links or T1 circuitry or wireless backbone mesh networks, all to a traffic operations center, which is very similar to a NOC or a SOC. And I did that for 8 years, used the GI Bill, got my bachelor's degree, and got my MCSE, the biggest cert you could get. So I was just all in Windows, just being a network and domain admin. And I wanted to go for my master's degree, but I didn't have a GI Bill anymore because I used it. And I realized how expensive college was.
Yes.
And it was like, no, bro, I'm not going to pay for that. I can't pay for that. Who can afford this? I mean, so I was like, well, maybe let's see what Uncle Sam has. And a buddy of mine at the time, again, this was before there was cyber protection centers. It was the Information Operations Center. So the WIOC, the guy I worked with at Maricopa County Department of Transportation, he was a staff sergeant in the Army Reserves. And he said, hey, Jordan, we have this small group of pretty IT savvy signal guys. And we're doing this new thing called computer network defense. And we're going to start building out, the doctrine and the training. And we're focused on this thing called cyber. I was like, well, they paid for my master's degree. And they're like, it's in cyber. And it's like, cool. Yeah. I actually had an interview to join the unit, and then being prior service, and especially prior service in the Marine Corps, I was able to essentially just sign up and walk in the door, keep my rank, my MOS transferred over.
Nice.
And that pretty much the military funded and pushed all of my education towards cyber, where now instead of, working on my CCMP, I'm now getting my Security Plus, my CEH, my, CHFI, and doing all my CAS, PASIS, all those things. So it was really the Army that funded and pushed me in that direction. And it wasn't until, and so I joined the Army Reserves in 2010, and then eventually worked my way to the Warrant Officer program. And while I was going through the candidate school, that was when I actually got hired as my first cyber gig, and that was to be the deputy program manager and SOC lead for this defense contracting company called Defense Point Security that had won the SOC contract at ICE for the ICE SOC in Chandler, Arizona. So that was my first not only cyber gig but civilian leadership gig as well.
Nice.
Yeah,
I think
that were 2014.
I want to say I'm probably right next door to the SOC that you probably worked in from your current role, which is wild.
Yeah, you're in the same building.
Well, no, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's fantastic. And I mean, thank you for your service, as I mentioned before. And thank you. Well, of course. And it's doctor, but it's funny. And I always tell people like, hey, I'm not a recruiter for the military. However, for those that can adjust to the culture and are willing to join and do the service, the military is a great way, whether it's with the Army, the National Guard, the Reserves, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Space Force. It's a great way to kind of leverage learning a new set of skills, getting your school paid for. You have to do it for 20 years. If you can, awesome. If you don't want to, that's fine. Do one contract. But the benefits that can come out of it are huge. And it's like,
well, my son's in, he joined the Marine Corps like me. And I told him, I was like, hey, you're probably going to hate it every second of it. And you're going to just can't wait for the day that you get out. But you are going to use all of those benefits and it's going to really pave your life. As we talk about, breaking into cyber, it's also about, how feasible in today's day is it to break into the American dream. I was able to, the VA had to give me a home loan. When I got out of the Marine Corps, I had a job making, maybe $60,000 at the time. And I was a single dad. I was raising, speaking of my son, he was 3. So I was raising him on my own, but I was able to, because of the VA, buy a home. And now granted, 170, because they can't tell you no. Mm-hmm. And so I was able to get finance for a house that was $175,000. But I was able to raise my son and go to work and go to school at the same time and, pay a mortgage that was affordable and buy a house that was affordable. Yeah. Like that doesn't exist anymore. My son, he's about to get out in roughly 10 months. And it's just like he is walking into a totally different world than what I walked into, and even to a certain degree, what I walked into compared to the boomers before us, so it's not just like, unless you're a Nepo baby, you really need something. And I grew up poor. Like I used the military to break out of poverty. And, again, I'm not, it's not for everyone, like you said.
Yeah.
And there,
I always leave with that before, like, why are you trying to promote the Army? It's like, are you a recruiter? I'm like, I'm just saying it's not for everybody, but for those that want to take the challenge and go do it, like there's pros and cons. Don't get me wrong.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of risk. I mean, but there's pros and cons. Just getting in the car and driving, hitting the freeway and driving to work. So,
exactly.
Yeah, and again, I have 3 sons. So my oldest absolutely 100% recommended it for him. So put my own skin in the game. My middle son, I would not recommend it for him. He's a completely different, different make, and I don't think he would thrive or benefit. Yeah, I think for him, a different avenue towards success in the American dream is the better way to go. So I practice what I preach. On those lines.
Before I get too off canter and off topic, because that could be a whole nother chat for a whole nother video. But I think it leads into it actually perfectly. So as you mentioned, for paving the way and kind of getting into the industry, and your son even kind of walking into a new kind of kind of world when it comes to trying to break into anything, whether it's cyber or anything else in this industry. There's always three things that we talk about here on the channel as well that everyone has an opinion on, right? It's the chicken before the egg aspect: certifications, experience, and education. Is there a certain order you see those three things of the importance in cybersecurity, and if so, why?
Yeah. So I'm gonna caveat experience for a second there. So I'm gonna put a pin in that because that really goes into the AI topic. When you think about like when we again back in the day for you and I, your entry level was a tier 1 SOC analyst.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those jobs are almost gone now, because of AI. So we'll put that in the corner. And you're right. Like I am kind of, my son wants to get in cyber, so I'm kind of relearning what it takes to break into this industry over again in today's age, because I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to help him get there. But when it comes to certs and degrees, especially as like a director, I hire a lot and from all different, walks of life, and different skill sets for different types of positions, and some of them are even like, executive level positions I'll be on the panels for. So certifications are great because they speak to a skill set. And especially if you're trying to break into an industry, whether it's a government contract, where it's like, I need to bill out for this particular line item and this particular skill set. And according to 8570 or whatever the requirement or the proposal that we all agreed and signed to, this person has said this skill, and that translates to a CCNA, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that speaks to a skill set, and where as a leader, I can, under obviously assumptions, that person, I can place them to go do a task. You can turn that widget. I need a widget turner in that corner. Please go do that. Degrees speak to aptitude, because if you think about like how impressive is someone that can go run like a 5K versus someone that can go run a marathon, like you will, when when your friends say, "Oh, I just got done with a 5K," like, "Oh, cool, that's cool." So, "Oh, I just ran the Boston Marathon." And you're like, "Damn, son, like, good job." Like college is hard. Like it is something where it takes amount of aptitude, resiliency, dedication to do something and stick with it for 4 years, So, and granted, a lot of like executives, that translates better because 4-year degree. That makes sense to me because I don't know what a CCNA is and I don't know what it stands for.
Yep.
But it does speak to your ability to dedicate yourself to something challenging and to complete it. And that, and also with that comes some form of soft skills, whether it be critical thinking, the ability to complete tasks in a timely manner, all of those things that supposed to turn you into a very more well-rounded contributor, so that's kind of how I look at it, especially like when I see a resume. The certs are great, but like I can teach people skills.
Thank you. We'll put a pin on that because I want to comment on that. Keep going.
Yeah, like what is your attitude? Are you ambitious? What is your aptitude? Like, I'm gonna be looking. What have you done with your career and your free time? A perfect example. So I have a family member that he went to college, got his bachelor's. That's great. He got his CCNA. That's great. And he got a job actually at the Knock upstairs where you work, right upstairs. So this was 2014. And that was the last time he did anything for his education or this career. That is deadly.
That's a long pause to not learn anything new.
Yeah. And again, and if you think about like, someone's talking about AI, on the side, but like, as the cost of automation goes down over time, and this is with all businesses, this is, whether we go back 100 years, this is the same equation. Cost of labor or cost of automation, technology goes down, cost of labor over time goes up. When they intersect, it is a business decision to now all of a sudden now have an automatic register, self checkout machine at your local grocery store, or the kiosk at the airport. You know, technology will always, once it gets to that refinement, replace jobs. And I've struggled with this. This friend of mine, or a family member, I was just like, bro, you are in the danger zone. You are one business decision from being completely obsolete, and you will not be able to get back into the job that you thought you were qualified for. So if I see something like that, it's like, all right, this person only wants to do one thing, and I might need that. Now, again, we need people like that. We do need people in, that, hey, I'm happy just doing my job. I have my skill. I do this one thing on this one ship. Cool. More power to you. I'm going to take care of you the best I can, as your leader, but when I'm evolving my team and I'm evolving my program and I'm trying to keep up with our adversaries, you may not evolve with us,
Yeah.
and that's unfortunate, but that's kind of the situation, and again, it's not like, oh, I can't wait to like eliminate overhead to save money. Like, I don't get, I'm not a shareholder, but it's just like, I need to be able to bring people with me that are on this journey, and they're going to, go into, the future of cyber with me, and some people won't make that cut. So
I'll add this, Jordan. So, I mean, you mentioned too, like, you can teach the skill. So, like, I've told people, and it's like talking to a lot of different hiring managers here on the channel. Most of the time, it's like they'll look at resumes and it's like they'll see someone with a Security Plus or like a GSEC from SANS. And the person that has the SANS certification doesn't mean they're the better candidate. Sometimes the deciding factor to bring whoever on will be a simple, basic question. Walk me through how to investigate a phishing investigation. And if that person with the Security Plus answers that question more better and defined and like by hey, standard systematic ABCD, and gives a better answer than the folks with the GSEC, it just doesn't mean that they're less educated or the certification holds more weight. It just means they're a stronger and better candidate. And I solely believe, with, like you said as well, most organizations have pretty solid onboarding processes, where I've almost argued that if I could bring someone on that has the aptitude, the willingness to learn, and dedication and heart, that's going to show up, that's going to try, that's going to do their best, you can turn anyone into a cybersecurity professional, whether that's on the blue team, GRC, red team. Because
the strongest, smartest forensic guru doesn't matter if he doesn't show up to work on time. Like again, and as the director, that's now my problem. And it's like, bro, we can't even start to even evaluating you to do your job until we get past this very bare minimum, like this entry level, like aptitude, attitude, skills you can teach. Like, and again, perfect. So when I was the director of a SOC at Charles Schwab, our HR recruiter, her husband was a lifelong mechanic. He owned his own auto shop garage. And one day, I don't know what the occasion was, but he showed up to have lunch with his wife, and his wife was like, hey, can you give me a tour of the SOC? He was so enamored with what the team was doing. And he was like, what do I got to do to get a job here? And again, this is an older fella, we're not talking some 20-year-old. He's older than me, and I'm 42. And I said, go get your Security Plus and come back, and I'll get you a tier 1 SOC analyst job. And I didn't think I'd ever see him again. 3 months later, he's back. I got my cert. Where's my job? And I was like, damn, wow, all right. And again, I gave it to him, and that was 2018. He is now the senior manager running that SOC. All right. So he had ambition. He started as a tier 1 SOC analyst, promoted above his peers. Because sometimes, again, keep in mind, I was the lead there at the time. There were other tier 1 SOC analysts where I was like, hey, your tenure, you've got more experience than everyone around you. Before I go external, I'm going to offer it to you. And I've had people say, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
I don't want that extra responsibility. I like my ship. I like this widget over here in this corner. Okay, well, I'm going to promote someone else. They may be less experienced, but they got that hunger.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and so he's now looking at becoming a director soon. And again, he is some of his people now are still the same spot that they were when he was a tier one SOC analyst.
It's so crazy to me. Like sometimes I don't know, and it's like you said, like we need worker bees. Sometimes we need someone to push the button. We need someone to know that one good tool. Like, hey, I'm really good at Splunk. Cool. We need someone to be really good at Splunk right now. But just like you said, and I think one thing that I tell a lot of folks also bring in getting into this field, like things and tools are growing. There's new threats, new things are being created, new tools being introduced to the SOC, or maybe your SOC's going to transition from one tool to another. You could be a Splunk guru, but then all of a sudden next year you guys are changing over to Sumo Logic or Elastic. And now you need to learn a whole new kind of methodology on how to do investigations. Very similar, nothing too crazy. It's not like learning a completely new language, but still minute like nuances that are going to be important to kind of have to kind of make those transitions and kind of figure out. So, but yeah, no, 100%. So, well, Jordan, that leads me up, I think, to my next a great question that kind of segues into this. So, mentorship and knowing when you're ready to become a mentor. So, obviously, I know because you and I have just talked the last 2 weeks ago here at the Scottsdale Cyber Summit. We brought you on as an advisory board member with the Ginger Hacker Initiative. So glad to have you on the team.
Yep, pleasure.
But when is it time, or when do you know you're ready to be a mentor? And what advice would you give someone trying to find a mentor, or maybe networking?
So, I think anyone can be a mentor. Like, you don't have to wait till you're a director like me. I think humility is very, very important. Number one quality for a good leader. And I obviously, like, I consider myself pretty successful in this career. I've achieved quite a bit. I'm typically the youngest, person that's in a strategic steering committee with all the VPs, or other directors. I'm pretty young for where I'm at right now. But I didn't get here because I'm just so damn smart. Like other people took chances with me, just like I have, with other people. They're like, they saw the aptitude because they probably didn't see much skills, but they're like, I can fix that. And took a chance on me. I solely believe that. Like my success is the community. It deserves the credit, not just me, and anyone that tells you otherwise is just full of crap. Like they're just being a narcissist, like we help, the community helps each other. Everyone pays it forward, whether they're doing it directly or not. So for me, I think it's really important to pay that forward.
Yeah.
And anyone, even, as we say, in the industry, even an individual contributor can be a mentor because, those going back to how do we break into the industry? Well, certs and degree aren't going to do it anymore. Now, granted, I look at a lot. I've been looking at resumes for SOC analysts going back over a decade. And, a decade ago, the Security Plus was impressive. And they were pretty uncommon. It was rare. But, if I were to look at resumes now, everyone has a bachelor's and everyone has a few certs. So it's going to be those personal connections that I think at this point in time are going to start being more important. Like that's going to be the end. I mean, it's an old proverb. It's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yeah.
But I really do think in cybersecurity, that's going to be more important now because not only are the entry level jobs getting replaced by AI, in economic times, it gets harder and harder to hire, especially, I mentioned this before, like what's more dangerous, the capabilities of AI to replace your job or the perception that AI can actually do it to an executive. And that I think is the more dangerous because you see companies everywhere, whether it's Intel, Amazon, all those big, evil corporations, they'll, lay off 6,000 people. And then next thing you know, like, oh, crap, AI can't actually do the magic sauce. So, I was told I got to bring 6,000 of them back, but that's just going to rinse and repeat. And like,
Yeah.
like who, whatever executive made that call didn't learn a lesson. They just said, nah, it was too soon. I'm going to wait, the next quarter because I'm still drinking the same Kool-Aid. Snake oil is being sold to me. So for me, again, like, it's very difficult to get new resources. So I don't want to take a risk on someone that's an unknown entity and a liability, because, like, for me, it's like every resume I'm looking at all has SANS, GCIH, GCIA. They all have degrees. That's great. So everyone is skilled and has, the aptitude. But are you an asshole? Like, I need to know that, like, I need to know if do you have those soft skills? Like, are you going to show up in time? Are you going to be a good team player? Who can vouch for you that you're not going to be my new problem?
It's
again, another old saying, if you're a leader, 90% of your time is focused on 10% of your workforce.
Yep.
And that has always held true ever since I started as a decade ago.
It's so wild because I was talking to some other folks on the channel as well that used to be educational, like, directors and such, and in the education side before going in, like, to, like, state compliance. And professional skills, or the soft skills, are some things that some places don't. There are literally some companies, Jordan, that are hiring people to come into their organization and teaching folks, more the younger generation, on how to respond to a business email, how to communicate with C-suite staff, how to be on a Zoom call professionally. And it's the same thing you mentioned. Like, the best thing I think managers are looking for is, like, they're like we've mentioned, like, every resume is starting to look the same. What's making you stand out is the best candidate. And then how do you carry yourself during an interview? Are you coachable? Can you take good, positive, and negative feedback? Can you also give it? If someone asks you for an honest opinion, can you actually give it without being biased and, like, not trying, oh yeah, no, this is great work. But then a week later, like, hey, did you look at this over, man? This report is trash. Oh, I thought it was okay. I didn't want to hurt so-and-so's feelings. Sometimes it takes tough love to be good love. And it's like, I've mentioned that to folks I've talked to and mentored, where it's like, look, and that's one thing I think you and I can both relate to as warrant officers. Like, the things that commanders enjoy about a good warrant officer is, like, we tell you like it is. And we give you the facts, and we'll say, no, this is horrible. This is trash. We should not do this.
Yeah. We're number one skill that every warrant officer should have. Yeah. I just hired two junior pen testers, to join my newly created red team at Banner. And I pulled them from the SOC, and I knew they were junior. I knew, like, this would be their first, red team full-time position. But, why did I give them the job? Even though they didn't have on paper a lot of the prereqs, because when I did my introduction, like, hey, I'm the new boss, I'm the new bigwig. Here's my story, here's my vision for the roadmap. I'm a complete stranger that's like 5 ranks above you, These two gentlemen, obviously separately, immediately after, my presentation, they IM'd me. And it was just like, hey, hey, boss, you got a minute, and, I chatted with them, and they're like, I really want to be a pen tester. And I'm really super excited that, that you're building a red team. And I just wonder, what can I do to be a part of that red team, And so, like, I was like, all right, well, for the next 6 months, I'm going to give you a bunch of tasks. I'm going to give you a bunch of expectations. You're still going to have to do your other job. Show me you want it, And again, it's not like, he wasn't working for free. It wasn't like late up at night, running scripts, not getting paid for it. But, managing his time and putting in, doing some homework and everything like that. Those two, it was as simple as that, and there's some other people that are on my team, like, well, why didn't I get it? Like, you didn't ask. These two other people asked, and they put in the time, they put in the effort, and they earned it. And
there's a saying I learned in the police academy, ASKGET. If you don't ask, you don't get.
Yeah.
And it was a police aspect of, like, look, like, ask them if they got drugs on them. Ask if they got a gun. Ask if they have a weapon on them. If you don't ask, they're not going to tell you.
Yeah.
Go on, because they don't want to tell you. But if you ask them, you can start to read body language, posturing, and that can give you a sense or an inkling of, like, okay, do they have something on them? So I've kind of incorporated that into my work life within cyber, where it's like, if I want something, I obviously strive for it and I aim for that goal. But sometimes if it's just like, hey, I'd like a higher raise come the end of the year, I will just ask my boss, hey,
Yeah.
what do I need to do to make sure I have top marks to receive like the highest expectations and possible salary increase for my goals at the end of the year? Establish the baseline or establish what's needed, and then go a little bit above it or completely over it to show that you're doing that work and you're just asking. Because
Yeah.
sometimes if you don't ask, they're not going to tell you.
Well,
One,
you gotta want it. And I'm not talking like, like some billionaire, like just pull yourself up from bootstraps. Like, no, that's BS. You were all Nepo babies. I don't want to hear it. But like, you do gotta want it and you gotta show, because like, again, if you make that relationship, what who you start building that professional relationship with your boss, your peers, other managers, the organization as a whole.
yep.
When an empty seat shows up, I don't want to go outside because that's the unknown. I may end up with a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But this dude over here has stood the test of time and has shown me that he or she is hungry, and I'll take that risk. I'll take that chance. And when I offer it, you gotta want it, again, because there's some people that have done all that, and they're like, hey, here's the new seat. This seat, I need an ass in this seat, like, I know you're good to go. No, I'm good, okay.
This
All
way
right,
so comfortable. It's like, man, all right.
yeah.
Well, Jordan, actually, Lindsay, we have 3 more questions, I think, and I don't think I've asked you this one yet, so we'll actually get bleed in. So it's like, I think we talked about you're talking about resumes and getting to see so many across your desk for the decade, and so you've been within cybersecurity. We'll kind of make it generic, but maybe like, what are the top 3 things you look for like in a strong resume? Because I know you've probably hired for many roles, but what are some things on like maybe like a high level that you're kind of immediately looking for to make, and like you've already hit on a lot of these to kind of make those people pop or stand out?
I like to see progression, like if someone is wanting to be a senior manager, I want to see that somewhere they started off as an individual contributor so that means they have a technical background, and that throughout a reasonable time frame that you could see this year they got this cert, this following year they got this promotion, and then they went back and got whatever the equivalent of the job they're now doing, that cert, whatever that was, or wrapped up a degree, and then they leveraged that, so it's a tango, it's like, all right, I got the cert to get the job. Now I need to get the next cert or degree or whatever to get the next job. So I like seeing that personal and professional growth over time. Again, if I'm trying to place a position that is extremely critical, important,
Yeah.
where it's like, I need aptitude, this is a strategic hire, not just, I need a button, a C, so I can, bill out, this line item, So again, like, it really does depend. You like, sometimes it's like, I just need a SQL administrator. So I'm just going to look who has the most experience to be, manage my SQL databases, but in cyber, for the most part, most of my hires are strategic because we are evolving, if you're a doctor, sorry, like, the lungs and the heart are still in the same damn place that they've been for the past, I don't know, 100,000 years. Like, our tools have gotten better and the medication and our techniques have gotten better, but like, your landscape, your area of operation, pun intended, hasn't changed. But ours in cyber, always growing.
Yeah.
Always, always, always growing. So for me, most of my hires are strategic. So I'm looking like, I may just need a SOC analyst right now, but I know I will need a threat intel analyst a couple of years from now, as natural turnover. And I'm looking at my entire organization as a whole, So I personally look for like the soft skills, aptitude and attitude, and career progression. If someone just, they're like, hey, I've just done this one job, and that's it. That's all I want to do. You just maybe I might need that, but for me, it's career progression. I prioritize that the most.
Cool. Awesome. Do you have another two, or is that like the one that like that's what you want to see?
Well, I guess that would be career progression, and then soft skills, aptitude and attitude.
Okay, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Well, Jordan, first off, thank you again so much for coming on the channel. We're gonna wrap up the last two questions, which aren't too crazy long, but as a huge thank you, of course, you're gonna get some awesome pick of the litter of some Ginger Hacker swag from the Spotify shop. So I'll make sure that link gets to you before we end the call tonight. Second question I had for you is when you're not doing cybersecurity, when you're not doing Army stuff, when you're not doing director stuff, what does Jordan like to do for fun, unplug, and kind of relax when not doing cyber?
Well, I don't relax much.
None of us do.
I know. So I'm probably bless my wife's heart. I'm probably exhausting to be married to because I'm always on the go. I recently, had a arcade bar business that I ran for several years. I've got a few rental properties that I run. And I'm going to be taking that arcade bar into a different type of a business. So I like having side hustles, and definitely, especially as your pay increases, so does your tax liability. So it's good to have side hustles, and make donations to wonderful charitable organizations. But I really love cosplay. Last weekend at the UwuCon, which is an anime convention, I have a full Helldivers 2 kit and so does my wife. And so we went and cosplayed, at that event. And I played, so cosplay is a big one. And, obviously video gaming. And I play the bagpipes.
Nice, dude. What video game are you into right now? What's the top game?
Definitely Helldivers 2.
Nice.
So although they did came out with Final Fantasy Tactics Remastered, which I had on my Game Boy Advance when I was in Iraq in 2004, bored off my butt, not supposed to be playing that as I'm like, in one of our machine gun, positions, just staring out into the middle of nothing for, 12-hour shifts at a time. So.
Well, Jordan, that's fantastic. And like, you still need to have that kind of things to do to relax and stuff and kind of unplug, as much as busy as it is of a side hustle. But Jordan, last but not least, before I let you go for the evening, before we cut this episode done, what would be the last piece of advice you give someone trying to break into cyber?
Definitely like find an organization such as like, Ginger Hacker, or start going to the events. Going back to what we talked about, you really got to start making friends in the industry and building those professional networks. I interviewed recently for the CISO position because it opened up, which again, I knew that was not necessarily a long shot, but probably unlikely just because I'm not quite at that. I'm not a CISO yet, and I didn't have that. And I knew they were looking for an already experienced CISO. But I got to meet all the right people and make all the right friends, and show my aptitude, show my attitude, and show my drive and my hunger. And so now I'm being recommended for a senior director role that is opening up, and even like all the people that I talk to, because at my level, like there is no search for me, like I already have my master's degree. I mean, I could go get my PhD, but that's just for my ego,
Yeah. Doctor.
Yeah. So it's really just about like building the right connections and building that brand. Oh, and so on that line, because my motto is be unique and be memorable. Find a way to build your brand, to build your trademark, because names are hard to remember. I go to a cyber summit or a conference, I shake a lot of hands. I wore this shirt to Falcon. All right. The Falcon convention in Vegas a couple of weeks ago. All right. Thousands of people were there. I had people that came up to me the next day and be like, and I wasn't wearing the same shirt. They're like, you were that dude with that really cool paintball shirt, like they remembered me out of that entire massive crowd just because of my shirt, And when we're, when executives and leaders, they're in the meetings, whether it's for merit increases, raises, or promotions, it's like a horse trading thing. There's a bell curve, there's only a certain allotment, and I'll be in the round table and I'm like, hey, I want to promote Andrew. He's amazing, he's awesome. And if everyone else at that table says, who's Andrew? Like, the odds of you getting that promotion just diminished. But because you put yourself out there, you attended meetings, you spoke up in video conferences, champion projects, or you always wear a nerdy shirt. Or when I was at Schwab, I was the suspenders and bow tie guy. Like I could be like, who's Andrew? Oh, the bow tie guy. Oh yeah, man, he helped us get through our last audit. Like, oh man, he's awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Give him the promotion. Like, it's as easy as that sometimes. And so I always say, be unique and be memorable, and obviously, don't be an asshole, because they'll remember that for sure. You're unique and memorable, and you're an asshole.
Yeah, make waves, but in the right way is one phrase I like to tell people.
Yeah. So as you're building those connections and building your reputation and your brand, have something that's unique and memorable to you, and it could be something as just a silly shirt, and that way people remember you and start thinking about you, when it's time to make, hiring decisions or whatnot.
Well, awesome, Jordan. And really appreciate your time, as I mentioned before. And everyone, thank you so much for sticking around on this amazing episode of Breaking Into Cyber. Drop a like, hit that comment, hit the subscribe button if you haven't yet. And as always, we'll catch you on the next episode.
Awesome. Thank you.